Hello, Raptors family. It's your host, the Scholar Baller, and welcome to episode 9 of the It's a Raptors Ting podcast. This week's episode is entitled Top 5. So let's get right down to it. The main reason why I've entitled this week's episode Top 5 is just because I really wanted to get into a breakdown of what I feel the Raptors starting 5 should look like this season. So starting off at center, I feel as though Jakobpoeltl should be our center. I feel like he is our most skilled center, especially in comparison to Christian Koloko. Don't get me wrong, I do think Christian Koloko has a lot of great defensive potential. However, he's still very raw and he has a long way to go developmentally to work on his positioning, as well as making sure that he doesn't foul as much, whereas Jakobpoeltl is already more of a finished product. He's going to be able to fit with the starters a lot more and play a lot more cohesively out there with the starting unit. He knows his role, both literally and figuratively, as I also think he's a great big to feed off of a pick and roll while he's cutting to the basket. And also he gives us a decent amount of size. By modern NBA standards anyways. He gives us a decent amount of size at the center position, which is something the Raptors have been struggling with for the past 4 years or so, right? 4 to 5 years, give or take a year, right? So Jakobpoeltl definitely starts at the center. I'm going to look into the power forward position now. And I feel as though with the power forward position, it's pretty clear cut. That is none other than Spicy P himself, Pascal Siakam. He's definitely our best all-around player. And he is still our number one option on offense, if you ask me. I don't think that there's any player on this current Raptors roster that's more developed / battled hardened than Pascal Siakam, given that he's won a championship. He's from that era of Raptors basketball, if you will. I call it an era. I'm being a little bit hyperbolic here. It was just 1 year, but it's 1 year to remember, that's for sure. But nonetheless, he's definitely someone we should look out for. He is definitively our leader, and I expect him to not try to do too much in terms of over dribbling the ball. I don't see him doing that, but I see Pascal Siakam's leadership style as score when you're hot and facilitate when it's necessary. I think ultimately that's who you will see when we see Pascal Siakam taking on a leadership role. I don't expect him to be the leader in the clutch in that type of a situation. I don't see him doing those types of things. He's never really been a shoot off the dribble kind of a player. He's always been more of a get in his groove, do the spin move type of guy. So yeah, I'm looking to see him ensure that he makes his presence felt. That's really what I want from him. That's how I feel he will be the most optimal in terms of him being a leader for this team. With that being said, I'm going to move on to the small forward position. Now, this is where it gets slightly tough. See, in my opinion, this is where the tension starts to come in. I feel as though Scotty Barnes should be our starting small forward. And I know there's been a lot of debate about him starting at point guard. Me personally, I just don't think that we necessarily need to make him the focal point in terms of running the offense and simultaneously having expectations of being one of the leading scorers on the team. I think Scotty Barnes is an effective offensive weapon uh, when used within the half court offense. So I think the Raptors should really focus on how they plan to use him within the half court offense. And here and there, you can definitely have him bring up the ball as, just because he's a small forward doesn't mean that he can't operate in that unofficial but well-known composite role of being a point forward. But yeah, he definitely gives us some much needed size in our front court. And if we can get him to also crash the boards, that can give us more potential points and opportunities on the offensive end, as well as sealing the deal and finishing the play by grabbing the defensive rebound. So definitely, me personally, I'd love to see Scotty Barnes play more small forward. Don't at me, bruh. You can check out episode 2 of the Raptors Ting podcast because, I touched on what he could do as a point guard back in that episode. But moreover, I'm definitely leaning more towards the idea of Scotty Barnes being a point forward for this team. I see him. This might rub people a little bit the wrong way, but I think that whatever Lamar Odom was in his prime, Scotty Barnes can break the ceiling and expand our minds as to what it means to be a point forward in the NBA. Because I think Scotty Barnes could revolutionize the notion of a point forward to the point where the notion of a point forward gets funneled into the all-star conversation, gets funneled into potentially the MVP conversation. So I'm looking forward to seeing him being one of the proponents moving forward of legitimizing that concept of being the point forward. And I think he's the perfect player to do that. And it would be great to see all of that history play out in a Raptors uniform. And I think it's pretty obvious that our two guard should be OG Anunoby. OG Anunoby, and I'm gonna make a video about OG Anunoby coming up real soon, and I'll let you guys know when that comes out. But OG Anunoby should start as our two guard, in my view. OG Anunoby is someone who is definitively looking for a bigger offensive role. He has been for quite some time, and this is one of the I would say the premier opportunity for him to take on that offensive role. As many of you know, the two guard or the off guard historically has been responsible for putting up a lot of points on the board. And I think OG Anunoby is ready for that. And there's going to be a little bit of versatility there because OG Anunoby is no stranger to being a hot shooter from the three-point line, which is great because then you can have him run those sets coming off of down screens and hitting open shots. You can have looks like that for OG, shots like that for him to get his game going. And also because OG Anunoby's, he's big, right? Like, what is OG Anunoby, like 6'8", 220, 6'8", 230, give or take. Like, he can really post up and use his size, post up and finish strong over a lot of those matchups. So I really like the idea of OG Anunoby at the two guard spot for us this upcoming season. And the point guard spot, that's going to be a tough call. I'm gonna put a tentative asterisk over this and say Dennis Schroder should be our starting point guard. Dennis Schroder, I think he's someone who, if you just give him the responsibilities of being the floor general and making sure that you handle the rock, you don't turn it over, run the offense, be a leader out there, make sure your voice is heard, and don't just crumble and cave under pressure. Like, we're basically asking Dennis Schroder to do the minimum and not take up too much space. Because one of the things that happened last season was, and I think we can all agree, dear old Freddie V. I mean, Freddie V ain't that old, but, Freddie V was definitely doing way too much last season. We can all agree, high volume of shots, not very efficient, taking up time, holding the ball for far too long, not getting guys involved. We need the exact opposite out of Dennis Schroder. And all Dennis Schroder, hey, Dennis, I don't want to sound condescending because I know you had a great FIBA situation. You got the tournament MVP, whoop-de-doo. That's really cool and all. But we about to get back to this NBA biz right here, Check out Secure the Bag, by the way. Little reference there. Check out Secure the Bag, episode 8 of the Raptors Ting podcast. But nonetheless, we about to get back to this NBA business right here. And with that in mind, you, Dennis Schroder, all you really gotta do, you got one job. Be a basic but reliable point guard for this team. That's all we need. You don't need to do nothing more. Don't need to do nothing less. However, if you do something positive, that's a plus. Well, that's my take in a nutshell on the Raptors starting five. Hate it or love it. It is what it is. Let me know in the comments section. I think the Raptors can be a real problem this season for some other teams. Everyone's been making these whispers about a dark horse season, but this dark horse season might just be this season. With that being said, that's it for episode 9 of the It's Raptors Ting podcast. Thank you so much, Raptors family, for all the love and support. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate all of you being there to help me along on this journey. We're gonna see this grow, and we're gonna examine basketball on a man-dem level. Really shedding light to the Toronto man perspective. It's been real. Sayin, it's a Raptors Ting Ehh. For more Raptors content, like, comment, and subscribe.